All right. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for bearing with us while we let folks join us and log in and get settled. I am Emma. I'm Director of Strategic Programs here at Bentley, and I am so excited to talk to you today about our Working Professional MBA programs. Before I dive in, just to give you a little sense of how we'll spend our time, I'm going to share a little bit about how to think about the variety of working professional programs that Bentley offers. And then certainly we'll leave lots of time for questions and answers should anyone have any while they are on the line. One thing I want to say before we get started is that this session really is for working professionals that are considering doing their MBA part-time in some manner. And we're going to talk about all the different definitions of part-time because there are many, but this session probably won't serve you if you're interested in doing your MBA full-time or if you're interested in a different one of Bentley's master's programs. We won't be covering any of that content. So certainly join us. We have a plethora of events, and I would love to have you there for a different program. But today we're specifically going to be talking about the part-time MBA. So let me go ahead and share my screen and tell you a little bit about options for advancing your career through an MBA here at Bentley. So I'm going to throw some quotes up on a screen that I have heard from a lot of people as they navigate thinking about doing an MBA typically at the phase of a career that someone might be thinking of doing a part-time MBA. And I'm curious on the line if you've said something similar to one of these. So some examples might be, man, I'm really good at my job. I've been doing it for a while. I'm really contributing, but I don't know how to elevate, or I don't know how to manage a team. And that's something the next step that I would be taking would require. Or maybe instead, you're sitting in a meeting and you're like, man, again, I can lead a meeting really well when it's on my area of focus. But if I go to a meeting, maybe my manager invited me to our accounting meeting this week, or our finance meeting, or our marketing meeting, and I'm sitting there and it's like they're speaking a different language to me. And I want to make sure that as I go to elevate, I'm really prepared to understand what those interconnections between departments are. If you've ever said one of these things or something like it, I can totally understand why you might be thinking about an MBA as a way of kind of connecting the dots across a business and allowing you to accelerate your career further from being just an individual contributor to kind of leading an organization. And so today we're going to talk about how Bentley can support you in doing that. One thing I want to point out before we dive into Bentley's programs is kind of what different profiles we tend to see of our graduate students as it pertains to how they're thinking about their career path. And so the first group, which honestly might be a lot of the folks here on the line today, are your career accelerators. These are folks that are looking to make a modest career change, either in their function or industry, or looking to elevate. Maybe it's that, again, an example, I've spoken to a product manager. She was like, Emma, I am a really good product manager. I've been elevated a couple of times as an individual contributor, but I know to make the leap to associate director in that space, I really need to understand the language of finance. That would be a change in function, right? She'd be taking on more responsibility, and that's why she's looking to join a program. So I would suspect a lot of the folks on the line here today fall into that career accelerator bucket, and we'll return to this concept throughout the presentation. Other folks might be career changers. These are people who want to fully invest in a new graduate degree in order to help them completely pivot. That makes complete sense. You certainly can do that through a part-time program, but typically we see that more with full-time students. And then finally, we have entrepreneurs, people who want to start their own venture, and therefore they feel as though they need a moderate understanding of the entirety of how a business works. And we see folks in a part-time program or a full-time program fit that profile. So I hope you can think about where you fit into these kinds of profiles as we talk about Bentley's different offerings and what they could help you do as it pertains to your career. The other thing I want to talk about is this idea of elevation and what skills employers are saying they're looking for in their next generation of leaders. So this is a survey that the Graduate Management and Mission Council did of corporate recruiters. So they basically went out to lots of different organizations and said, okay, What are the skills you are expecting to see in folks, not just currently, but in the next 5 to 10 years? And you can see there are some core skills that are going to remain absolutely constant. Ideas of strategic thinking, problem solving, communication. But on top of that, there's this expectation that folks are skilled in emerging technology. So things like IT skills, using AI, innovation, and what have you. And what Bentley is looking to do with all of our programs, and you're going to hear this time and again as I talk about our part time programs, is ensure that our folks that are looking to accelerate their careers are really being supported in building this combination of skills. They're building their human skills, what I'll call human skills here, things like communications, adaptability, thinking about leadership, but they're also being exposed to all the emerging tech that they might need in order to be successful in their kind of future leadership position. You can see this come out in how our president talks about what Bentley is doing and in our program profile. So if you look at all of the programs I'm going to talk about today, and then we're going to spend a lot of time differentiating amongst them, there's some really core elements that are true across all of them. We have faculty that are not only industry connected, particularly as it pertains to kind of technology, but they're extraordinarily collaborative. And what I mean by that is all of our programs are interdisciplinary in nature at the MBA level. So if you take something like our STEM MBA with an AI major, that major was actually created by a combination of our management folks, our computer and information system folks, and our philosophy department. And that allows you to be a really well-rounded person thinking about not only learning the kind of standard management and leadership skills, but you're also being exposed to the technology and the ethics that fall into this new phase of being a leader within the age of AI. We have STEM designated programs. Certainly our curriculum, as I'm describing, is forward looking. And then we have a lot of opportunity for hands-on learning. And we'll spend a lot of time here. But at the management, kind of the MBA level, we believe that you learn by doing and learn by participating. And throughout all of our MBA programs, there's a huge focus on experiential learning and really applying concepts, not only within the classroom, but to your job. As a part-time student, as a working professional who's looking to accelerate their career, we want to make sure what you're learning is immediately applicable to what you are doing and vice versa, that you're able to bring challenges from your life into the classroom in order to work with your mates and your classmates to solve them. So let's now talk about our MBA portfolio and how you might think about which program is appropriate for you as you pursue a degree at Bentley. So there's some program features I want you to consider. I'm going to give you a minute to think about this yourself. I want you to think about flexibility, specialization, any kind of themes or topics you think you might want to cover, and how you learn best. And then we're going to look at all of our programs through the lens of those things in order to determine what program might be right for you. So I'm going to actually give you one moment to think about the answer to these questions. All right. So let's look at all of our MBA programs that particularly pertain to working professionals. So you can see here, we have 4 kind of categories of programs that would be appropriate for a working professional. All of them are designed to maximize your career acceleration. So meaning particularly for those in the top bucket, prepare them for adding potentially additional functions, maybe making a shift in their industry. But as you can see here, when you look at this taxonomy of the programs, there's some pretty significant differences amongst those programs. And I want to talk through how you might be able to think about those and therefore where you personally might fit. So first and foremost, I want to talk about flexibility. So you can see here, I actually showed 2 different kinds of flexibility on the screen that I want us to be able to talk about. Our part-time MBA, whether STEM designated or not, allows you to choose your own adventure. You can take the program in as little as 2 years, or you could take up to 5 years to complete your MBA. And that means you could decide to take 3 courses one semester, 1 course the next, dependent on your work responsibilities, dependent on maybe your employer tuition reimbursement. So that offers you flexibility of timeline, right? That if you actually look at the professional MBA and the healthcare MBA, you don't have. Those are cohorted programs that are in a very specific cadence where you actually can't complete slower or faster. You are required to complete them on a specific cadence. However, you could see a different kind of flexibility, which maybe the professional MBA is a version of, which is about format. Professional MBA actually has a calendar that over your 2 years of the program, if you're here on campus for a weekend, if you're online at a specific specified time, or if you have a choose your own adventure week where you're not required to sign in to any class at any specific time. That affords a different kind of flexibility, right? You know that you have all these options of how you're learning, and you can plan your life around it because you know ahead of time what is being expected of you. So remember, as I mentioned before, flexibility is a way to differentiate between these programs. You might say to me, Emma, I really need to maximize my organization's tuition reimbursement because that's a really important thing to me. Okay, fantastic. That might mean that the part-time MBA is for you because then you can modulate how much you're taking based on your tuition reimbursement. Other people might say that's actually not what I'm interested in from a flexibility perspective. I'm more interested in having in-person interaction while also knowing that I can run my life around it. Okay, that might be is a point for the professional MBA for you. Now, you're not going to pick a program based on any one point, so I'd love to go on to the next feature, which is specialization. So all of our programs have the opportunity for you to specialize in some way. The part-time MBA and STEM MBA allow you to pick a major or a concentration as part of your program. You don't have to, but you can choose to take kind of your electives as a cluster and therefore specialize in one of the topics that you see here. The professional MBA instead allows you actually to pick 4 of 6 what we call focus areas in that program that give you an in-depth look at 4 of these 6 topics that you see on the screen. It's not the same as a full major, but instead of selecting 1, you select 4. In the healthcare MBA, you're specializing in a focus on healthcare. Maybe that becomes a little bit of a duh, Emma. It is the title of the program. All of the courses in that program are infused with healthcare examples, and all of your electives have a really healthcare specific focus. So you might be saying to me, Emma, you know what? I want to do an MBA and I really want to be able to focus on financial analytics. And I only want to focus on financial analytics as part of that. Okay, maybe we start to think about the STEM MBA. But maybe it's that you say, Emma, I'm interested in financial analytics, but I also want to learn about sustainable organizations. Okay, professional MBA might be right. You might be saying, Emma, I work in the healthcare industry and I want to be surrounded by other healthcare professionals that are interested in talking about business through that lens. Awesome. Healthcare MBA might be the right specialization. And so, again, when you're considering your program options, you want to think about what are those skills or what are those specialties you want to add on top of your foundational business knowledge in order to accelerate your career in the direction you are looking to go. I also want to talk about themes. So we talked about the healthcare MBA a little bit, but I want to talk about the professional MBA that has 2 very specific themes woven throughout all of its coursework. This is different than the part-time MBA or STEM MBA, where you get to select all your classes. No 2 people's set of courses maybe look exactly alike. The professional MBA, it's a cohort program that you're doing with all of your classmates. You get to choose your concentrations or your focus areas. But no matter what you choose, every course is going to talk about emerging technology and organizational sustainability. So I want to talk a little bit about what that means, just so whether you come to Bentley or go elsewhere, you're aware of maybe what thematic integration looks like. So Bentley picked the 2 themes for the professional MBA based on what employers told us they wanted to see as the kind of things that their next generation leaders bring that their current leaders don't. So that's a huge signal of the kind of career acceleration power of those two themes, because they're saying, look, our leaders right now, they don't understand organizational sustainability or emerging technology. And we actually really want to have next generation leaders that know that. So first, emerging technology. The thing about emerging technology in this program is it's infused not only as a topic, but also as a way you learn. So there are courses that are going to specifically talk about emerging technology. So an example is there's a global travel, a global immersion requirement as part of the professional MBA, and folks are going to go to Sweden, a place that is very focused on emerging technology and integrating it into their business, and do a week's worth of site visits to different corporations there to learn about emerging technology in their business context. But we're also using emerging technology to teach you how to learn. So for example, actually this weekend, our students, some are taking a course in giving and receiving performance feedback, and they're actually going to go into our VR lab and practice giving feedback and get real-time assessment of how they're doing based on a VR technology. So thematically, as I mentioned, every course in that program is infused with one of those two themes. Similarly, as I mentioned, the healthcare MBA has themes as well. And those themes are actually pulled out through the faculty that teach in it. So you see two faculty members here on the screen, Fred and Ben. Both of them do an enormous amount of research in the healthcare space. Fred leads our Center for the Integration of Science and Technology, where he thinks of, or sorry, it's an industry where he thinks about how science is brought into kind of business, particularly through the lens of pharmaceuticals. Ben studies drug pricing. He's an economist who is focused on that. And the two of them teach courses in the healthcare MBA that are infused not only with their expertise that I just shared, but the broader healthcare environment. So that program, while at the end of it, just like the professional MBA, the STEM MBA, and so on, everyone graduates with an MBA from all of these programs. The professional MBA and the healthcare MBA allow you to focus thematically a little differently than perhaps a generalized MBA. So the last thing I want to talk about here is how you learn. So Bentley offers a number of ways you can learn throughout our program. So I'm looking at the format line here. If you look at the part-time MBA and the STEM MBA, you have the option by each course, whether you want to take the program online or in person. So you might decide, you know what, Emma, I feel like I need to be online for most of my program. I'm working, my professional job makes it such that it's hard for me to get to campus. Okay, got it. That's an option in those programs. You might also say, ooh, interesting. This semester, my work schedule is shifting and I'm actually able to come to campus and I would love to learn in person with folks. You have that option within that program, and that you can make a decision as you make decisions about your classes. As I mentioned earlier, the professional MBA's flexibility shows up in its format, where it's really focused on creating deep networking connection for you, but also knowing you're a working professional and you can't be here all the time. So that offers 2 on-campus weekends per semester, and otherwise the rest of the program is online. And so you have the opportunity to kind of match together what I would argue is kind of a full-time experience of being in person, having a cohort, being with each other, with a working professional program that allows you to be online, and if your job requires you to travel, hopping in and joining us or what have you. The healthcare MBA is entirely online. We know in that industry, sometimes it's really hard to step away from where you are. We have a lot of physicians, we have people that work at the hospital, we have administrators, all of them have different pulls on their time. And so that program's entirely online. And we connect students to each other, but through an online modality. So as you're thinking about across these programs, which one you might want to do, you might say, you know what? Having an ability to be in person sometimes without always having to be in person for a semester, that's of interest to me. Professional MBA might be a really interesting thing for you to think about. And so I just want to go back right to where I started, which is as you consider Bentley's programs, and what I hope desperately that you do is after this, reach out to me so we can talk through all of this together. It can help you triangulate which offering fits your personal needs the best. Another thing I just want to say about working professionals in Bentley's programs is that we are really well positioned to support you in your career acceleration. I think sometimes folks think, oh, well, if I'm doing this as a working professional and I already have a job and all I want to do is elevate in my career, that's a big deal. I don't really need career services because they're only talking about how to land a job, not how to elevate. That could not be more less true. We absolutely are focused on creating a bespoke career journey for each of our students that focuses on where they are in their career. And I have to tell you, even if you are elevating within your current organization, many of these steps still pertain to you, and you can be supported in upskilling and learning more. And so we work really closely with our working professionals to ensure that they are really well set up for their career success and the outcomes they're looking for. I want to show you 4 examples of working professionals that have recently gone through our programs. You can see when they graduated, you can see what their pre-MBA job and their post-MBA jobs were. What I think is really interesting about here is we have someone who went from being really specifically an analyst to broadening his role. He became a manager, but be also of marketing, totally different than what he was doing before. We have someone who became an entrepreneur. She started working in marketing and then decided she was going to open her own marketing shop. We had someone who was a director of a really specific program who went on to be the director of DEIB at a really important institution. And then finally, we have an example of someone who hasn't elevated yet. She's still in the role that she was in before, but I know Sam very well, and something she's talked a lot about with me is how much this program has made her better at her current job. She's a perfect example of someone who shared with me, her hospital site has a wonderful, has a weekly finance meeting. And she used to sit there and completely abdicate responsibility. She was like, I have finance people, not my focus. I'm going to let them run this. She was terrified of her accounting class. She was in the healthcare MBA, and she was terrified of the accounting class. She said it was the class she loved the most in the end, and it completely changed her relationship with those meetings. And now she's able to lead them. She's a contributor to them. She's asking questions. She's able to run her site better because she understands what's happening in those meetings. And I think she would argue it makes her more likely for elevation in the future because she is able to show that she can really own the leadership of this space. I want to talk a little bit about applying to these programs. We really want to support our working professionals through the application process. And so, as I said, and I'm going to ask my colleague who's on the line to put my email address in the chat. I hope that you will reach out to me individually to have a conversation about your interest, to help us decide where you should be applying, and then ultimately for me to help you actually complete your application. You can see here, we try to make it as streamlined as possible while also allowing us to get to know you. We are really focused on creating culture here at Bentley and finding folks that are going to really benefit from what Bentley is offering. And so we want to get to know you. We want to know where you are in your work experience, and we want to know kind of how you move through your professional space. And so these are the application requirements. One of the other things that differentiates our programs is when you can apply for them. So an example here is our part-time MBA and our part-time STEM MBA. You're able to apply to start in January. And so if you were coming to me and you're like, Emma, I cannot wait. I really want to start my coursework. Those are great options, and that's something you could start pursuing now. Whereas the professional MBA and the healthcare MBA both are cohort programs, so you do the whole program with the same people, and they only start in the fall. So you would be starting kind of next September for either of those programs. And so as you're thinking about what program you want to do, that might be something else that you take into consideration as you talk to me or others about what program you might want to do. Another thing I just want to share with you as working professionals is that our executive education classes can be a wonderful way that you learn about kind of business and going back to school. Um, these are two potential executive education courses that we offer. If you have interest in them, I hope you'll reach out to me and I can help facilitate you trying them. As I mentioned, when I speak with working professionals, particularly those that maybe have been out of school for quite some time, a lot of them will be like, Emma, I don't know. I very hilariously, I had a student say to me that he had to dust the cobwebs off of his transcript. And executive ed was a way for him in a very short form way. These are typically only a few different class days, right? The Leadership Accelerator is only over the course of 3 days. You can kind of feel like what it's like to be back in a classroom. You can try it. And um, basically, I will say, remind yourself that you absolutely can be successful in this space. Similarly, we actually have a 1 hour option, a kind of a free module for professional development that I just put in the chat about giving and receiving performance feedback. That's happening next week out of our executive ed group. That's another way to kind of see some of our faculty members. Both Marcus and Emily that are teaching that 1 hour session teach actually across all of those programs. Both of them teach in the professional MBA together. Marcus teaches our strategic leadership classes. So you certainly would see their faces, and it might be a good way to get to know our faculty and just see if they are someone you might want to learn from. So I would love to see you there next week, and I just put that registration link in the chat. And finally, as I said, let us stay in touch. I really want a chance to get to know you and support you through your consideration process. What I just shared with you today was really extensive, right? There were a lot of parts to, okay, wait, how do I put flexibility and specialization together, plus my tuition reimbursement in order to make the best decisions? And so we are really here to help you to support you in thinking that through and leveraging things like executive ed to help you make that decision. And so I hope you'll use one of the QR codes on the screen or the email address that my colleague put in the chat to get in touch and let us support you in making some decisions. So with that, I want to give a couple of minutes for folks to put questions in the Q&A if they have any. I also recognize this might not be a session with a lot of Q&A because you might have very specific personal questions you're hoping to ask and that you would prefer to talk to me about individually. So I will not take it personally if you do not want to put it in the Q&A. But I'm going to give one more minute for folks to consider if they have any questions. And if not, I really hope people will reach out and take advantage of talking individually to me or one of my colleagues about how you're thinking about a MBA degree. All right, seeing no questions, I'm going to let you all go have dinner if you're here on the East Coast or start your evenings. But please do be in touch. I hope we'll hear from you soon. Thanks.